So thank you guys for joining the Q Chat podcast, the Go Queen brand Q Chat podcast. And today I have a very special guest. She's a motivational speaker, and she also has a similar platform on self-love. And you guys know I am huge about self-love. So I want to go ahead and introduce her right now. And it is Miss Wynter Patterson. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so grateful that you decided to be on the show, and you wear many hats actually. Like, I don't even know where to start. When I did all your research, you're an entrepreneur, you're a speaker, you have the self-love platform, you've written books, you're on the new reality TV show on the OWN network. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like where should I start? So let's take it back to the beginning, I guess. I know like you have the self-love platform. So what started you to just get to that journey, I guess would be the best question to start with.
You know what? That's actually a very good question. And to be completely honest, I would say my divorce is really probably the biggest catalyst. I realized I was in a very, emotionally toxic relationship. Abusive on a lot of levels, not physically. But after I came out of that, my thoughts were, after I finished, dealing with him and blaming him and what he did, I started to look internally like, okay, what's going on with me that I felt like this was okay for so long, or that I missed all of these red flags. What is it that I'm missing? And God began to reveal to me that there were some parts of me that I didn't love and believe in, that I didn't really believe myself worthy of real and enduring love, which is why I accepted that poor excuse for love. You know what I'm saying? And so as I was healing through that journey, I had to start healing myself and dealing with, insecurities and, the childhood traumas that we all have, the, fear of rejection that some of us deal with. All of that began as a self-love journey for myself. And now it's like, I'm overflowing with gratitude. I would just want to share it with everybody. Like, hey guys, this is what helped. This is what helped me. And maybe it'll help you on your journey.
That's amazing. I connected with everything you just said. And I'm glad that you touched on after you got past what he did, how you realized and focused on how you can cleanse yourself. And I went on a similar journey. Like I said, we have the same similar background, same thing. I think getting to the true crust of self-love is when you have to break down your own walls too and figure, like you said, why did I accept this? Why did I think this was okay? Why did I not pick up on those red flags? So it's really amazing how you said that. What do you feel was the most difficult part though on that journey? Like I said, once you got past him, because it's so easy for anyone when we go through bad divorces or bad relationships and abuse on levels that aren't physical, you can't see those bruises in the mirror. What was the most difficult part in getting to the core of, okay, here's how Wynter can be the best version of herself? Like, what do you think was the most difficult part of just that journey? What did you learn about yourself that was like, wow, this is something that I really, 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 once I remove this, I'll be free? Like, what was the most difficult part of that?
I think the most difficult part was forgiving myself. Because I carried so much guilt and shame for what I allowed to happen. I had guilt and shame for even my parts in it, because there were times when, there were times when I wasn't at my best. I certainly wasn't who I am now when I was married. When I was the one, that was, angry and not expressing myself well and creating, tension and problems. So I had to really take a hard look at myself and say, I forgive you. I accept God's forgiveness for the way that I behaved and for what I accepted. And I stopped looking at myself through the lens of shame and guilt. Because that's how I would look at myself, and I would be so ashamed of everything. Oh my God, I had this huge wedding and it failed. Oh my God, I shouldn't have said that in the argument. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I allowed this to go on too long. And
Right.
I carried that weight. And I think the hardest part was when I finally said, I've got to let myself off the hook. I've got to
Mm.
forgive myself. I've got to accept God's forgiveness, and I've got to
Yeah.
move forward. And I think that probably was the most difficult hurdle, because you keep wanting to go back to, that feeling of shame, right? You keep
Right.
wanting to
Right.
go back to the guilt. And I should have said this, and you kind of rehearse it over and over.
Oh
But I
yeah.
finally got to a place and I said, you know what? That was me then. I'm
Mm-hmm.
aware of that mistake, and I will never be that person again.
Right. And I think why it's so easy for us to go back to that place of guilt and shame because it's comfortable and it's
Mhm.
easy. It's easy to say, oh, I'm just gonna stick in my pigsty. I'm just gonna stay in the filth of my guilt and my shame because there's no work involved, quite frankly. It's like
Mhm.
there's work involved in healing yourself. There's work involved in looking at, okay, I do need to forgive myself. There's work involved in every single one of us who've been through terrible divorces to admit, like, hey, there's some things that I did wrong too. I
Mhm.
also have toxic behaviors.
Mhm.
That's something
Yeah.
that at 43, like I had to admit, like, okay, I have done toxic things too. Like it wasn't all him, and it takes a level of maturity that it takes a lot to get to
Yeah.
that point because as women, I think we're conditioned, we're conditioned as young girls to be healers and, to make people happy and not
Mhm.
necessarily how to make ourselves happy. So when
Mhm.
something goes wrong, we like, what did I do? And no one goes into a marriage thinking it's going to end. Everyone
No.
has that fairy tale of what a marriage is supposed to be or what a family is supposed to be. But I think what a lot of people don't know is like once it ends, you mourn it, you grieve it
Oh, goodness,
even
yes.
if it was a bad relationship, you still grieve what could have been,
Mhm.
what you put your hopes into, especially when there's children involved. You do grieve it and you mourn it. And it's a lot to just, build yourself back up. So I completely get where you're coming from. So I know you said with your self-love journey, you have this excitement to just share it with others. And when I was looking through your information, I saw on your website, it said that you had a passion for convincing others that it is indeed possible to live healthy, impactful lives. So, how did you get to the point where you said, okay, I've figured out myself, I've unpacked this? What was that light bulb moment or just that freeing spirit where you decided, hey, I'm not only am I going to figure out where I can forgive myself and live a healthier and happier life? Where did you get to the point where you said, hey, I'm going to reach out to others? I'm going to put that platform out there to help the next sister, the next queen. What was that journey like where you just realized, hey, did you feel like you always had a gift to speak to others? Like what led you to that road to reach out to others on your platform?
Well, I wrote my first book in 2011,
Okay.
right before I got married. So I
Mm,
was already teaching healing and how to overcome, through God, and accepting,
mm-hmm,
for accepting God's forgiveness. Like I had already written I Am a Pearl. Um,
mm-hmm.
and then I got married, and it was like I had to teach myself every principle that I was already teaching and preaching all over the world. Because
Yeah.
while my marriage was going crazy, I was traveling all over the world teaching the message of the pearl.
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
so I had already, God had already put it in my heart that I was there to, teach about healing and overcoming and, understanding your value as a woman. But my divorce gave me a depth that, baby, you can't touch me now. Because
Mm-hmm,
back
mm-hmm.
in the day when I would preach it, people would hear me preach and they'd be like, okay, well, what have you been through? And I
Yeah.
didn't have that, where I could really touch them. I'm like, nah, now I can get down like, baby, let's
Mm-hmm.
talk, because I
Right.
had to be broken down to the lowest common denominator and built back up. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to answer your question, I had, been teaching and preaching and explaining and this message of healing and overcoming and self-value had came way before. It just really intensified
Mm-hmm.
after I had to start from the bottom
Mm.
and rebuild.
Yes. And, I think that's why I always feel like, when we go through bad things, at the time, no one ever processes like, okay, this is happening for a reason. You know,
Right.
no one is that, no one is that centered where they're going to say, okay, you know, I'm going to take this example and I'm going to use it and I'm going to help others. Of course, no one thinks that while they're going through bad things, but that's why I always say now I count everything on joy. Because when you look back on things and you look at where you're at now, it's like, okay, this happened for a reason. You know, because like you said, if you didn't have that test, you wouldn't have the testimony. You wouldn't be able to really, you know, obviously you can reach people through words, but there's nothing like pulling that example. And there's nothing like, you know, just having that fever from, okay, I went through XYZ. I can tell you, here's how you can get out of it. There's nothing like going through that, because that's how you can truly reach people. So back to, I know you're an author. So did you always write as a child? Like, when did you realize you had a gift for writing?
I actually did. That's a very good question. I enjoyed English class very much in high school and in middle school. And I remember, I think it was like 7th or 8th grade, I had a really great teacher that encouraged me to just kind of write and flow. And I would write these fictional stories that were really, really kind of crazy for a, 13-year-old. But I loved it, and I was able to articulate and communicate what I wanted to say in a way that was very engaging, and she really encouraged it. So fast forward after college, I think I just kind of got a notion one day, like, hey, I want to write a book, and it all came back to me, this love for writing. And the rest is history. I started writing, and I was really surprised with how, I don't know if you've ever written a book, but you write it and you go back and read and you're like, wow, I wrote that? Like, that was actually really good. So yeah, I just, all of the things that I loved as a child came back to me when I was putting together my first book. And I really I love writing.
See, and I love talking to female authors, especially, sisters who've written books. I made it in English as well. And it's just funny how so many people that have been on the podcast have written books. So, I've always had a love for books. So I always get excited when I speak to another writer, like it's just a great thing. So obviously you said that you've written a new book. So tell us about the new book too.
Well, I'm in the process of writing the third book.
Okay.
This one is all about self-love.
Okay.
And I felt like there's a real need to clarify what self-love is.
Yes.
Because it seems like self-love right now is cute selfie, cute caption, I love myself,
right.
And that's not quite it.
Right.
So I want to talk about how in the book, I talk about how self-love is not a one-stop shop. You don't arrive at self-love. It is a daily practice of, committing yourself to living at your fullness and understanding yourself and readjusting and recalibrating and recognizing toxic relationships, recognizing when you're not functioning at your best. And so it really kind of goes into what self-love is. And, I want people to get away from this idea that you arrive at this confident state, and that's just not the case.
Right.
So many, spinning wheels and factors going on in our life for us to just get somewhere and arrive. We are constantly, learning ourselves and healing. And so that's what the book talks about, in ways that we can, continue and overcome and heal ourselves with self-love.
And, one of the things about self-love too, and I said it in a podcast I just did recently, I'm like, I tell people all the time, go love yourself. That's like my favorite slogan, but I'm not saying, hey, go love yourself, and by next Thursday, everything's going to be great. You have to unpack things in order to get to a point of self-love. And you're right. It's more, it's the easy route when people think it's, oh, hey, just throw on some makeup, take a pic. No, that is not it. Like, self-love, and people who preach it like yourself and myself, we know self-love is about the inner. Yeah, it'll show on the outer, because you will get that glow. Because when I look at photographs of myself from years ago, like, I don't even look the same. Like, I can look at those pictures and say, oh my God, my skin looked drabby. I looked like I was just down and out, So it does come out, but self-love definitely is the inner, and not the outer. There's definite layers to it. So what do you think has been, and obviously I know we're going to get to you being on the Ready for Love show, but just in your journey of ministering to women, and like right now, obviously it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and a lot of times I'll meet different women and we'll just talk about just being in past toxic relationships and, you know, just the weight that it puts you under. And like you mentioned too, a lot of us get that guilt because sometimes it's kind of cloudy to pick up on the red flags. Right now, when you meet women, for example, who are single, because, you know, I think when you go through different things and you're trying to be in the single world and meet people, sometimes we step into some difficulties trying to recognize things so we don't repeat past patterns. What do you find when you talk to single women who may need some ministering on how to date and just how to go and get into healthy relationships after maybe not being in not so healthy relationships? What advice do you really give people to kind of stay true to themselves, but, you know, be able to date and be happy and just open themselves up, but also be cautious so that certain patterns aren't repeated? Like, what advice do you give women in that situation?
You know, I tell women to a lot of things that we deal with is because we don't trust our gut, our instinct, our,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Holy Spirit, our
Yeah.
guidance, you know, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we hear it, we have a certain feeling about a person or a relationship, and we tend to overlook it and only focus on the good, or,
Mm-hmm.
well, you know, I don't really like the way, you know, he didn't call me for 3 days, but when he did, he came, he brought me flowers. You know, like, we a lot of times we really you know, miss and don't allow our gut to speak to us, or God to guide us through our feelings and our emotions. So
Right.
I tell women, you know, trust your gut, trust that vibe that you're feeling. I also tell women to be present.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is trying to think too far ahead in a relationship. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So while some people are saying, well, I date with purpose, okay, that's fine, but you need to be in the moment. How are you
Mm-hmm.
feeling right now? Is this
Mm-hmm.
person someone that you are enjoying at the moment?
Mm-hmm.
Because 10 years from now, you know, you're not going to enjoy them if you know, you're sitting here making a checklist. Okay, well, he got a good job and you know, he does this, and, you know, he loved his mama, you know, but like,
Yeah.
what about being fully present in the moment and picking up on those signs, and,
Mm.
you know, seeing how do you guys interact? What is the conversation like? Don't get so far ahead, ladies. That's what I always tell people.
Mm. That's excellent advice, actually. I love that. That's amazing advice. So, further research with just looking at your background and all the many hats that you hold. So I saw that you're also an entrepreneur and you had a past career with JP Chase and a long, extensive career with them. And then you stepped out in the entrepreneur world. So what made you decide to transition and be independent and be an entrepreneur? We talk about entrepreneurship a lot on the show.
Yes, it was actually a piece in between. So I was with Chase for 14 years as a sales executive, vice president, branch manager. I did that at a high level for 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I started working with the Small Business Development Center, which is a division of the SBA,
Mm-hmm.
um, as a consultant for a couple of years. And that is how, once I got into that and I got a chance to help develop some small business owners and help people to grow their business,
Mm-hmm.
that was a catalyst for me to do it on my own. And so that's how that happened. I really love helping people on all levels.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's helping them understand self-love and, you know, overcoming their past, or helping them
Mm-hmm.
to build the business of their dreams, that is absolutely my passion, what I believe I was placed here to do, which is just help people move into a better state from the time they met me to the time they leave. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
I've had the opportunity to do with that entrepreneurship.
Oh, that's amazing. I also saw that. Are you still an ordained minister?
I am.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So, with and obviously, you know, when you have a calling from God, obviously, how do you maintain that integrity and, the way this world is now? And like I said, we'll touch on being on the reality series. How do
Mhm.
you stay centered to, maintain your integrity and maintain, your character and stay spirit led, with everything that you're doing?
Well, you know what? I started taking the limits off of myself and God probably about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to unpack that. What I mean by that is I still preach God,
Mm-hmm.
believe in the word of God very strongly.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of took those very rigid things that we grew up with, and I no longer subscribe to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so what I mean is like, I believe in the word of God is, um, what I no longer do is put God in a box. As
Mm-hmm.
far as, um, you know, everyone else is going to hell. This you
Right.
can't do this. You can't say that. God is
Mm-hmm.
bigger than all. I
Yeah.
feel like God knows me. He created me. I am authentically me because God lives in me. And so that allows me to live in my truth without living in the guilt and shame that some of our old teachings may have caused us to live in. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just me. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not perfect. I love
Mm-hmm.
God. I wear what I want. I say what I want. I have a good time, and God is still honored. And that's the truth that I live in.
I love that you said that because I have that background from, a religious family and, I like to call it like a level of stuffiness or like, oh, well, you're a Christian or you believe in God, you can't do this or you can't do that, to the point where it just gets overboard. And I think that's what also leads to women having guilt and shame because
Yeah.
we're stuck in this corner like, okay, well, if I do this, I'm dishonoring, my integrity or I'm making myself look bad. Like you
And
said,
God
when
is so much bigger than that.
exactly, exactly. When you're just being yourself. And I'm with you with that one because a lot of times just I kind of always felt like I was in a box in general, like in my family, because they're really conservative. And I'm like, I just have to be me. Like you said, like I didn't make myself, like I just have to be me. Like I have to be free. Like there's no other way to live. So I love how you said that because I think some people don't realize you can love God and still be yourself. I just feel like, when you have that religious background, it's kind of hard sometimes because you're afraid to offend people or you think being yourself is going to offend people or hurt people's feelings or you're not going to be accepted.
Mhm.
And to me, I want to touch on it more in future episodes, but I feel like sometimes people tend to weaponize religion and weaponize God. And I feel like it's the exact opposite of who he truly is.
Mhm.
And I just love how you said that. Like you're just yourself, and you still can minister because no one is perfect at the end of the day. And that's something that sometimes we forget. Like we think in order to be a particular way, we have to have this air of perfection. And that's when you're going to crumble.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's talk about the new series that you're on, Ready for Love, and that is The Last Resort, and it's on the OWN Network season 3, and it's hosted by nephew Tommy. So, what led you to be on the show? What made you decide that this would be a fun experience?
I was approached with this opportunity and I thought, you know, someone came to me and said, "Hey, there's a show. They're bringing singles together. They're professional singles. They're 30 and up,
Mhm.
accomplished guys." And I was like, who wouldn't want that, right? Who
Right,
wouldn't
right.
want to meet, some amazing guys who are accomplished and who are specifically saying that they are ready to love.
Hmm.
And so, I thought that this would be a great opportunity to try something new. You don't say no to Oprah under any
Right,
circumstance.
right, right, right.
But yeah, I'm at the point in my journey where I don't get a chance to really date or meet the quality men that I'd like to meet. And so this was an opportunity for me to meet some really cool guys and experience something I never experienced. And I feel like in order to get something you never had, you know, you got to do something you never done. You got to run and just jump off the cliff and, you know, figure it out on the way down. And that's what I did.
Now, we know how reality TV gets, sometimes it gets a negative look, but I actually personally love reality television, especially now during a pandemic. Like it gives me a release to watch it. I mean, quite frankly. So when you were on the show, and obviously it's a dating show, did you have any difficulties, you know, just like you said, being yourself, saying, hey, this is Wynter and I'm not shifting or folding? Did you have any difficulties, you know, being yourself on the show, or was it just easy breezy? Was it like a great, you know, thing? Just did you have any difficulties being yourself at all on the show?
I feel like I brought my authentic self to the show every day. Like that was
Mm-hmm.
me. My
Mm-hmm.
anger, my facial expressions that y'all are gonna see on the TV screen, those were real. If I look perturbed, angry, sad, mad, then I probably was. So I was able to I brought my authentic self. Now, how that translates, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Or how they create the storyline, I don't know.
Right,
But
right.
I committed. Sorry, I got a lot of people calling me now for some reason.
My phone's doing the
One,
same thing, even though it's on Do Not Disturb.
right.
It's crazy.
Um, one, I committed myself to you know, being my authentic self, and I really believe it worked in my favor. I really did, and you
Mm-hmm.
can see that on the show. And
Mm-hmm.
two, I committed myself to never tearing down another Black woman under any
Mm.
circumstance.
Yes, yes.
So I don't know if they did that to me, but you won't hear that coming out of my mouth.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
It's just that's not who I am. I just won't do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Right, right. And I love that. And I honestly think that's the only reason that sometimes reality television gets like a bad rap, is only because the way, you know, we portray ourselves. I know like there's the big controversy now with the Real Housewives of Potomac, which is actually one of my favorite shows. You know, everyone's like, oh, well, this whole situation makes Black women look bad. And, you know, I get it, you know, so kudos to you for the fact that you said that you stuck true to yourself and that you would never tear down another sister. Like I love that too, because I feel like that's the only reason these shows get a bad rap, only because, you know, some people get on the shows and they kind of lose themselves, and you know they kind of get wrapped up and they start doing things for the camera. So you know, which is unfortunate that it goes that route. But I think that's the only reason things like that get a bad rap. So I know that we discussed self-love and obviously dating and things like that. And I know you talk to people about self-love. That's your thing. One thing I talk about a lot on the show, I always tell people, is just to not settle. And I know we touched on this previously in a few questions back, but let's say you had someone and they came to you, which kind of touches on our previous question about ministering to single women. Let's say that they were in the situation where, and I know you said like it's kind of difficult finding quality men. Unfortunately, I think we all fall into that sometimes. But let's say you met someone and they're just kind of tired and they're like, hey, I'm about to just start lowering some of my standards, you know, and settling, which I'm really huge on not settling. What would you say to just encourage someone, you know, because I think it gets hard sometimes when people are trying to date. And like you said, people want to find quality partners. And sometimes when the numbers get kind of slim, you start analyzing yourself and thinking, oh, maybe I'm too picky. Maybe my standards are too high. Maybe I should change this. What would you say to that sister to encourage her to kind of keep her head up and to just stick with that list? Like, what would you tell a sister to just stay encouraged during this dating journey?
Well, first I would say I think it's good that she has a list. Every woman should have a list. Like
Mm-hmm,
you should
mm-hmm,
have a written list of what you are looking for, what you are expecting, what your non-negotiables are, and be very specific about that.
mm-hmm,
Um, and with that, you have to also remember that your mind controls so much of your world.
mm-hmm,
Even the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. And so if you think there are no good men and there's no one to meet your criteria and there's no one out there for you, then chances are that's what you're going to see. You're going to continue getting people who don't meet up and who don't measure your standards and who, you know, disrespect you and all those other terrible things. And so you have to, you know, make the list and go into it with the mindset that, you know, God can do all things. This person that I am wanting and desiring does exist. This is not far-fetched. I deserve love. Like all of those things and thoughts need to be in your head. You need to get those in your mind. And I'll talk about that later on my page about affirmations and things like that. But you know, you have to, you know, change your mindset. There are good men in this world. There are men that are looking to commit and give you the world on a silver platter. You just got to get out of your own way, set those expectations, and believe that it's going to happen for you.
And it's funny, you just said affirmation, which says to me, this is confirmation on the next question that I wanted to ask you was actually about affirmations. So like I said, I know you have the self-love mantra, and like we discussed, you know, just having that positive mindset. That's one of my huge platforms too. Do you have any major affirmations? Like I said, it's amazing that you just said that. Do you have any regular affirmations that you tend to use or that you may offer to other people to just keep that positive mindset? Because I do truly believe, and one of the things I do say, in order to achieve self-love, it is about having a positive mindset. Like to me, I feel like it marries, you know what I'm saying? It's impossible to have one without the other. So what are your affirmations that you would offer to people? Like I said, it's amazing that you just mentioned that.
You know what? I change my affirmations like almost every couple of weeks, every 3 weeks, because the thing about affirmations is you have to reinforce the positive and counteract the negative. So I need to reinforce the things that I already know I have going for me. I am smart. I am, you know, beautiful. I am fun. I you know, get things done, and then counteract the negatives. If I am, you know, someone who procrastinates, then I need to have an affirmation that says something like, I get things done in a timely manner. I hold myself accountable to completing projects. And so my affirmations change based on how I'm functioning for the month. All the time. There is one, and I want to give it to people because when I give it, people love it. I'll have to put it in the comments when you post it. I can't remember, but there's one that and it's an affirmation that I speak over myself that basically says something about I say, I am deeply loved by my creator and it manifests all around me through people and circumstances all day.
Love that.
Yeah. So I am deeply loved by my creator and it manifests through people and circumstances all day. And when you speak that over your life and you believe it, you'll start to see people and circumstances lining up to serve you. Lining up to give you the very best treatment, the highest customer service. So yeah, that's one that I try to remember to speak over myself all the time. And you could see the difference in how people treat you and your perception of how you're being treated as well.
Yes, I definitely think with a positive mindset, how we view ourselves is amazing. And just that phrase, I am, is so powerful. And I don't think people realize how powerful just to say I am, because just putting that out there in the universe, speaking that life, saying I am, it puts that mirror up and it forces you to reflect on who you truly are. And like, for example, like the movie Black Panther, I've seen this movie a billion times, right? So one time I was watching a movie, I swear I've seen a movie at least 15, 16 times already. But something that I caught that I never realized before was the scene where T'Challa is on the mountain and he's fighting or whatever with Michael B. Jordan's character and he's losing, and Angela Bassett's character, the mother, she looks at him and she says, show him who you are. And something about that scene, like it should be
powerful.
Right, to say, show them who you are. You know, so when you take that reflection and you put I am, it just it means a lot, because it really makes you reflect on who you truly are. Like I tell people all the time, just remember there's no one else in this world like you. You're unique. And to me, that should be enough to celebrate and count all joy, to give you that, okay, like I'm worth something. I am unique. But just to say I am, is an affirmation alone. And just to think of what you put after I am, you're worth everything. You're enough. You're worthy. Just to put that to fill in that blank space after I am is amazing. So I love how you said that. So just before we round everything out, like I said, this has been a great conversation. I know we talk about the queens, and I already gave you a heads up on how I'll end up ending the conversation. But before we get to that, like I said, I know that we're in a very uncertain time, obviously. A lot of women, I feel like we're going through ups and downs for so many different reasons. I mean, there's a pandemic going on. A lot of entrepreneurs I've met have had some highs and lows just in general, trying to stay afloat. And even the dating world, I feel, because of the pandemic, has been extremely unique. So I'll say, so obviously we're talking about self-love. And I feel like during this time, it is easy to maybe fall into some pits of depression or some pits of anxiety or some pits of self-doubt. So, and I know we discussed affirmations. What would you like to say, though, for someone who maybe, let's say a young woman is listening and she's struggling right now? She's struggling. We've talked about self-love for 30 minutes and she may still not be really getting it. We talked about I am, and she may not really truly still be feeling it. What would you say to that person to just give them that boost, to just remind them of who they really are?
I would just say, remember that you are, the Bible says that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And for people who are not religious, I would just remind them that you are one of a kind. There is only one of you. And we know God, the universe, makes no mistakes. Right. So for you to be here at this time in this life, you are not a mistake. You are not an accident. You are perfectly the way the Creator wanted you to be at this time. And accept that, believe that, and give yourself grace for the mistakes you've made in the past, and give yourself grace for the mistakes that you're going to make in the future, because you're going to make some. But just know that there are no accidents. You are a miracle to be living in this time here at this time. There is an absolute purpose for you, and God makes no mistakes.
I love that. One last thing, and I know we discussed a lot about just forgiving yourself. And I know, like you said, self-love, the definition of self-love isn't just an easy thing to just say, hey, love yourself and move on. But with forgiveness, I feel like there's so many chapters to forgiveness. Like how does one start with just self-forgiveness? Like some people may be like, well, how do I even start with forgiving myself from past mistakes, or just forgiving myself for not even valuing myself? Like how does a person, in your opinion, how does a person even start to just forgive themselves? Because I think we talk so much about forgiving others, we miss the portion of forgiving ourselves in order to be free.
I think the process of starting to forgive yourself is first acknowledging where you went wrong. And I'm not talking about spending hours in negative self-reflection. I'm saying, like, it might be putting it down on a piece of paper. It may be looking at a situation and saying, I was wrong in this. When you admit something, you free yourself. And so that might mean putting it on paper. It might mean calling a girlfriend. Listen, I got to get this off my chest. This is where I was wrong. This is some areas that I failed in. I think the process of forgiveness starts with you acknowledging that mistake and that issue and saying, I made a mistake. And then the next part is you have got to give yourself grace. We are not perfect. We make mistakes all the time because we didn't we didn't come to this earth with a manual that says on Monday do this, on Tuesday do this, make sure you do this. Like, we didn't get a manual, and our parents were really, most of them were doing the very best that they could.
Right.
They were doing the best that they could. So we have things that we've gone through that have caused us to act and react the way that we are now. But you got to give yourself grace and say, I didn't know. I made a mistake. I was functioning from a place of lack of love. I had to, with my marriage, I said I was functioning from a place of fear, which caused, a lot of issues, for me.
Yes.
So, acknowledge the mistake, acknowledge, the lens that you were looking through when the mistake was made, and then give yourself grace.
I love that. So before we round everything out, I want you to give everyone that's listening, I always try to end the show with the same thing. So how do you define a queen?
A queen is someone who holds her head up high through all circumstances. So when things are down, when she has made a mistake, when she has, failed in society's thought process, a queen is a woman that continues to hold herself with poise and holds her head up high, even when things are down. And so and when I say hold your head up, I'm not saying like toxic positivity, because you need to feel your feelings. Okay.
Oh, yes.
You need to feel your feelings. But when I'm saying hold yourself up, I mean, you present yourself to the world as someone who is of value, who is worth something, who is worthy of respect, kindness, and love, in spite of whatever you've gone through.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this conversation. But I want you to make sure all the listeners and obviously viewers, because I will be uploading this video as well, please tell everyone where they can get all your contact information and also where they can view the show, what night does it come on, the time, everything. So give everyone all your contact information.
Yes. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as Wynter Patterson. That's Wynter with a Y, Patterson. And you can find me on Ready to Love Friday nights on the OWN network at 8 Central, 9 Eastern every Friday for at least the next 10 or 11 weeks. Okay. You guys give me grace, because, there are things you probably won't see that happen. But I think it should be a good show. But yeah, Wynter Patterson on all social media, and then the OWN network Friday nights at 8.
Thank you so much, Wynter, for blessing the show. Like I said, I love your energy, your personality. You have a beautiful energy and aura about yourself. And I really appreciate your humility and your graciousness for being on the show. And I wish you all the success on the show. I'll definitely be tuning in. And just thank you so much. And thank you for just laying out self-love. Like, I cannot stress it enough. I always tell people self-love is truly the key to just having a free life and being happy. So just thank you so much for breaking that down.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. You've been an excellent host, and thank you, audience, for tuning in. Hopefully we'll connect in the future, and God bless you guys.
Thank you. So everyone that is watching, just remember, I always end each show with the same thing. Make sure you go love yourself. As Wynter and I just said, it's okay to forgive yourself. No one comes with a manual, as she said. We can make mistakes. You be free, be happy, love yourself. Part of loving yourself is forgiving yourself. Part of loving yourself is also understanding your true worth, your true value. I say it all the time. Just make sure, if you don't do anything else, love yourself. Know that that person staring back at you in the mirror means something. You are special. There is no other Wynter. There's no other Sharonda. There's no other you. And that's enough to count all joy and to celebrate. So thank you again, Wynter. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you guys go love yourselves. And thank you guys for being a part of this conversation on the Q Chat. Thank you.